Welcome, and thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation.
Global supply chains operate as a continuous, round-the-clock engine, pushing millions of tons of critical freight across vast transcontinental distances every single night. But the financial mathematics governing that movement have fractured. In early 2026, the North American freight market hit a definitive structural inflection point. Spot line haul rates began a sustained upward trajectory, climbing 16.5% year-over-year by the first quarter. This acute rate shock pushed all-in freight indices to their highest operational levels since late 2022. Tracking 2024 to 2026, the contract line stays flat, but the spot trajectory breaks through the baseline. For the first time since 2021, spot rates invert above contracts. This triggers immediate fallout. Routing guides collapse as tender rejections spike, forcing shippers to the spot market. It is tempting to look at rising prices and assume a surge in consumer demand. The data contradicts this. Broad domestic consumer goods demand actually decelerated, slowing to a sluggish 1.1% in the second quarter of 2025. While industrial sector expansion provided a partial counterbalance, this crisis is a supply-side tightening. The market is experiencing a severe capacity contraction. The multi-year baseline of hyper-abundant, below-cost freight capacity is over. Pricing power has actively transferred from shippers back to carriers, requiring enterprise logistics teams to execute a total architectural realignment of their supply chains. We can trace this capacity contraction directly to the financial ruin of the mid-sized carrier. Carriers spent 2 years operating at or below break-even margins. A 25% multi-year operating cost inflation stack compressed those margins until the financial math failed completely. The tipping point arrived in the spring of 2026. Extreme fuel market volatility pushed diesel prices past $5.40 per gallon, simultaneously destroying operating margins and amplifying working capital requirements. The resulting mass exit was steep. By early 2026, active operating authorities issued by federal regulators dropped 12% below their 2022 peak, running parallel to 34 consecutive months of driver labor reduction. Yet, even when physical trucked illegal precedents, the landscape shifted completely with a landmark decision from the United States Supreme Court, Montgomery v. Caribe. This ruling expanded the legal liability standards for freight brokers. If a logistics intermediary exhibits negligent selection when contracting a motor carrier, they now face catastrophic vicarious liability for highway safety incidents. This creates a severe compliance bottleneck. To mitigate exposure, brokers and third-party logistics providers are actively blacklisting unvetted open-market spot carriers, regardless of how cheap their rates might be. The operational shift is direct. Shippers are moving away from open spot market reliance and rebuilding their routing guides for greater control. Procurement teams are pivoting away from static annual fixed-rate contracts and implementing index-linked pricing structures. By tying baseline compensation directly to verified market indices, shippers establish a fair pricing floor that keeps carriers operational during soft markets, while locking in a strict rate ceiling to protect themselves during capacity crunches. In a post-Montgomery legal landscape, unvetted spot capacity represents a specific liability risk. Prioritizing the long-term control of dedicated capacity allows shippers to manage these new legal and financial exposures simultaneously. To understand the physical restructuring of the supply chain, we have to look at macroeconomic pressures constraining capital-intensive sectors, starting with Federal Reserve monetary policy. Persistent inflation forced the Fed to hold benchmark interest rates steady between 4.25 and 4.50%. At these rates, holding large amounts of static inventory is financially toxic. Concurrently, severe tariff volatility forced importers to restructure their geographical footprints. Traditional East Asian manufacturing hubs were bypassed as industrial capital expenditures surged into Mexico. This rapid regionalization created severe backhaul imbalances. Freight volume originating near southern border gateways and Sunbelt industrial corridors surged, generating acute, localized capacity deficits. To maintain high-velocity supply chains without holding expensive static inventory, shippers are aggressively fragmenting full truckloads into smaller, less-than-truckload, or LTL, shipments. This massive modal shift compressed LTL network capacity. Average LTL shipment weights climbed by 11%, driving a year-over-year rate surge of 12.5% across the sector. This diagram compares the legacy logistics asset profile on the left with the modern layout on the right. The legacy monolithic warehouse fails today because it's designed for high static holding capacity. Under current rates, letting goods sit idle is too expensive. Modern physical infrastructure requires a decentralized footprint. Facilities must feature extreme dock-door ratios, specifically engineered for rapid LTL aggregation and stock turnover. The cargo never stops moving. Inbound containers are broken down, resorted, and loaded onto regional LTL runs in a continuous flow. Modern logistics real estate operates as an active freight orchestration node. This high-velocity configuration allows enterprises to leverage LTL network density and maintain low inventory holding costs. Executing dynamic rate hedging, real-time legal vetting, and high-velocity cross-dock routing simultaneously requires processing massive datasets. It completely surpasses human manual bandwidth. The technological execution layer resolving this is agentic artificial intelligence, deployed directly within supply chain management platforms. Legacy AI functions as passive visibility software, requiring a human prompt to analyze past data. Agentic AI operates with context-aware, autonomous execution, actively evaluating variables and taking independent steps to resolve bottlenecks. Gartner projects SCM spend on agentic AI will grow from under $2 billion in 2025 to $53 billion by 2030. The metric driving this is the collapse of decision latency. Workflows taking humans days to evaluate are now executed autonomously in seconds. Consider a real-time crisis scenario. Severe network congestion forces your primary contract carrier to reject a critical freight tender. Step 1. Without human intervention, the AI agent instantly queries federal safety databases and insurance registries to clear strict post-Montgomery liability standards for backup carriers. Step 2. The agent evaluates secondary options, comparing indexed contract rates against pre-vetted LTL spot capacity to identify the mathematically optimal hedge. Step 3. The system successfully reroutes the load in seconds, entirely eliminating operational friction and network delay. In a market defined by extreme cost pressure and strict compliance requirements, agentic AI serves as the core orchestration layer. It provides the speed and precision necessary to maintain operational continuity. The hyper-abundant, low-cost freight capacity of the early 2020s has been permanently erased by structural attrition and operating cost inflation. Navigating this squeeze requires a rigid, three-pillar operational architecture. First, shippers must abandon risky open spot boards, reallocating core volume into dedicated index-linked contract fleets. Second, physical supply chain assets must transition from centralized static warehousing into high-velocity regional cross-docks, aligned with nearshoring trade flows. Third, multi-agent AI ecosystems must be deployed to autonomously orchestrate vetting, routing, and compliance across this entire network. Market leverage has shifted back to carriers. For enterprise supply chains, navigating the 2026 squeeze requires integrating agility, legal compliance, and autonomous logic into every layer of the operation.